Drop a like if you're excited for Modern Warfare 2. In this video, I'm going to be going over 50 things you guys need to know about Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to attend a digital conference where Call of Duty devs went over all of the new stuff coming to Modern Warfare 2 and also Warzone 2. Before we get into the new information, if you guys haven't already dropped a like, I'd very much appreciate that. Subscribe so you don't miss any more future videos. And without further ado, let's get into the 50 things you need to know. The very first thing you guys need to know, and one of the most frequently asked questions on my tweet earlier today, is going to be what is the engine? It's going to be a completely brand new engine that nobody's ever played on yet. This engine not only will be used for Modern Warfare 2, but it'll also be used in Warzone 2. This engine's meant to usher in a brand new era for Call of Duty, and so all future Call of Duty games are going to be built on this engine, so that way they're all unified. Basically, if they ever want to do any integrations in the future, everything will be seamless and everything will be made on the same engine. So with everything moving forward on the same engine, this means Ricochet, the anti-cheat, is actually going to be live on day one of Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2, which is great news because we all know the hackers in the past have been an issue. Moving on to the next thing that has been most requested and most questioned is going to be the mechanics. How is the movement? How is all of that stuff going to work out? And let me tell you, the devs have been listening and they know that you guys love slide canceling and tac sprint because that is going to be coming back in Modern Warfare 2, in addition to a few new mechanics that I'm personally really stoked about and looked awesome in what I've gotten to see. The three new mechanics that they're going to add are swimming, diving, and ledge hanging. Swimming is just like you would think. It's swimming inside of the water. The water is going to be a new feature that they're adding into all Call of Duty modes is what they said. So that is going to be in multiplayer and also in Warzone 2. This will also add some vehicles to the game, which we'll get into later into the video. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. But the devs have spent a lot of time getting the swimming dialed. You are able to actually use a pistol underwater. It will do slightly less damage and you will take less damage to incoming rounds because you're underwater and the bullet slows down. They wanted to make this game as realistic as possible. Aside from being able to use your pistol underwater, you're actually also able to use a knife underwater, which adds another cool dynamic to the game. The other new mechanic that I mentioned is the dive. This is not related to the swimming. Obviously, I'd assume that you can couple the two together and go ahead and dive into the water, but it's more of a dolphin dive for Black Ops 1. This essentially is just another tool in order to go ahead and make great escapes, create new pushes into buildings, and go ahead and get around corners a little bit faster. I guess they gave the example of possibly just dolphin diving right into a window of a building. You kind of get to take your enemy by surprise. The last thing that they're adding, which is something I'm absolutely stoked for, is going to be the ledge hang mechanic. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what is the ledge hang mechanic? Basically, imagine you're at a building that has a window or even a rooftop that is slightly out of reach. You can actually vault and essentially grab on to the ledge and go ahead and actually peek up and over and choose if you want to go over or if you want to go back down. And it also will allow you to use your pistol while you're hanging on the ledge. So very Assassin's Creed-esque. I think it's a great feature because they also mentioned that it's going to be able to be used when you're parachuting. I can't tell you how many times I've been parachuting something in Warzone, cut my chute, and I'm just like a little bit short and I just smack against the wall. That won't be a thing anymore because in the future, you will just be ledge hanging and be able to make that mantle. The next most important thing I think you guys are going to want to know is going to be the Gunsmith and how all of that works. The new Gunsmith experience that we got to see in the presentation, they gave the example of an MP5 looking weapon and it had 3 attachments on it. But it's not the attachments that are important. It is actually how you can tune the attachments. So let's say you have a foregrip on your weapon. There's actually a customizability slider in for that specific attachment where you can actually slide and have the grip help with recoil control more. You could actually slide it down so that way it helps the ADS more, and that will actually hurt your recoil control, thus giving you more recoil. So it's going to be up to each individual player to go ahead and try to fine tune their weapon, and not only the weapon, but the attachments that they're using on their weapon to get the best build for them. It just adds a lot of customizability. Again, to me, this seems like it's going to be a little bit more complicated and less straightforward. However, I don't think it's going to be as complicated as I'm thinking. Again, I think once everybody gets to play on that and gets to be able to give it a go, I don't think it'll be that confusing. I am excited for it. The next thing I want to talk about is actually unlocking the weapons inside of Modern Warfare 2. So Modern Warfare 2 is going to do things very differently from your standard Call of Duties. Essentially, the Call of Duties that we've been playing forever, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to actually be a weapon tree system. So you might be thinking weapon tree, what does that mean? Essentially, think of it as like a skill tree from other games where basically you have these things in an order. So let's just give an example here. None of these guns I don't know are confirmed in the game. The guns that I do know are confirmed, I'll go over next. Throwing random guns out there. Let's say the weapon tree is set up as an M4, a SCAR, and then an MTAR. So basically the SCAR and the MTAR will be locked and you will have the M4 unlocked since it's the first weapon in the assault rifle weapon tree. tree, if you will. As you level up your M4 and unlock attachments, you're gaining XP for that specific assault rifle category. And from there, after you get a certain amount of XP, the SCAR will then unlock. And then, you know, as you level up more and more and more, and you gain more XP in that weapon class, you're going to go ahead and unlock more weapons down the line. Basically, it just gives people more flexibility and the ability to go ahead and use and unlock the weapons that they want. Since this is more of a Battlefield style unlock system, if anybody else is familiar with the Battlefield franchise, they had a very similar kind of weapon tree. You unlock weapons as you either do challenges or gain XP. You could buy an AR shortcut kit, which essentially would just automatically unlock all of the ARs and all of the attachments. So previously I said I was going to go ahead and go over all the weapons that I was actually able to see in the campaign missions I got to see, and also in the trailer. So going over a few fan favorites that stuck out to me during the gameplays I got to see: the M21, or at least a version of the M21. These likely are not going to be the names that they're called. This is just what I know them as from my previous Call of Duty experience. The M21 was in there, the MP7, the M4, the SCAR. They actually had a sledgehammer to break down a door. I don't know if that's going to be a melee weapon, but I would assume we've had sledgehammers in quite a few Call of Duties. The PP Bison was in there, the 1911 was in there, throwing knife, and the fan favorite, the AK-47. The weapons, I will say this: the look of them, the sound of them, and just the way that the recoil looked, the game looks phenomenal. I'm actually incredibly excited. It's very, very realistic looking, but while still having that fast-paced Call of Duty feel that I think people came to love. It's saying Modern Warfare 2 is going to be available on PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, which is a big deal because on PC, not only is it going to be on Battle.net, but it will also be on Steam. This might be something you guys think isn't a big deal. Like, what does it matter what launcher people use? Steam actually has active charts, which tracks concurrent players, which is cool because it'll give us another statistic to look at, and some people just don't like the Battle.net launcher, so I think that's a W. Moving on, getting into multiplayer. Multiplayer was built on a 3 gameplay style system. So what that means, they broke down the 3 play styles that are most apparent inside of Call of Duty and went ahead and built the game around that. So the 3 play styles are the rusher, very aggressive player, not necessarily a close range player they made to note, they just are an aggressive player always looking for eliminations. The other player is called a sentinel. It is a defensive player who wants to protect themselves and not die. They're not necessarily snipers, but they just are playing very cautious and kind of campy, without saying campy, but it's kind of camp. And then the third playstyle that they had in mind when they were building multiplayer is the stalker. It's basically a super tactical player that is super reactionary. This kind of player is basing what they're doing in game, playing based off of spawns. Are spawns going to flip? Are they not going to flip? Knowing when to push, knowing when not to push, and just playing more tactically, if you will. So why this is important is because the game is built with those 3 things in mind, and with that, that is what the default classes are made off of. So since there are 3 different play styles, they made 2 default classes for you guys to choose from for each style of play. Another major change that is going to be coming is new equipment and new field upgrades. I know you might be thinking these are not going to be that game changing, but I promise you what you're about to hear, that will literally blow your mind. So the new equipment, or new lethal, basically something that could be put on any created class, is going to be the drill charge. Now this is how you guys are going to want to go ahead and deal with campers, but also breach buildings or even deal with vehicles. It is a very cool new lethal, which basically when you throw it, it will stick against a wall and essentially drill into the wall, and then you'll hear a big thump, and that's a grenade getting thrown through the little hole in the wall, all from this one little charge. And it will flush enemies out of buildings, flush campers out of buildings, but it will also give you the ability to pick up eliminations and get people out of vehicles. So they explained, if you go ahead and throw this at a vehicle, it will stick to the hood or stick to wherever it is, and it will thump the grenade inside of the car, and it will blow up inside of the car. They did mention this is likely not going to destroy the vehicle, but if people choose to go ahead and stay inside the car, it will get you those eliminations. So most people will go ahead and get out, but you're able to do that. The next things I'm going to mention are actually new field upgrades. So they are adding a DDoS field upgrade, which is actually an EMP style field upgrade. So you'll be able to deploy this, go ahead and take out any enemy electronics or even disable vehicles. But the cool thing about this EMP is that it's not like in any other Call of Duty. You actually have control that you can go ahead, and then after it is enabled, you can choose when to disable it. So if you EMP somebody's vehicle, they get out, you pick up the elimination, you can actually disable the EMP so you can go ahead and use it again. The next field upgrade, and probably probably my favorite field upgrade is an inflatable Kevlar dummy. You heard that right. It is an inflatable Kevlar dummy. It is essentially what looks like a little briefcase you could throw on the ground, and then you can deploy it whenever you want, and it will pop up. It is basically a blow-up Call of Duty character, and on each side it's painted so that way it looks like an actual character that is holding a weapon. And the very cool feature about this is that when you go ahead and actually deploy it and pop it, it actually orients itself facing the nearest enemy, so that way it kind of draws their fire, if that makes sense. They really explain this as a way to go ahead and bait shots, or even figure out where enemies are. If they're camping on a high up building, you can go ahead and throw the dummy out in the middle of a field, and possibly when you pop it up and they begin firing at that, not only do you know where they are, but you can begin starting to flank. There's a lot of different utilities to it. Another cool feature is that if you end up throwing it in the water and deploying it, it will actually look and take kind of like a swimming motion in a way, so people will think that it's somebody swimming. And if you go ahead and throw it, you know, under something that is very short, and your player would typically have to be crouched, when you deploy it, the character will actually come out crouched. That was something that they mentioned, that this game, they want you to be able to do anything that you want to do, which is something cool and hasn't been really in any Call of Duties before. Anyway, another new field upgrade is going to be the tactical camera. This is one that I'm not super excited about, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as I'm thinking. Basically, very similar to Rainbow Six, where the cameras are on the little buggies, except for on the buggies, it's something that you just attach to the wall or throw at the wall. I don't know exactly how it's deployed, but it's just a little camera, and then you can watch where people are coming, where people are going if they cross your camera. I don't know how long it lasts. Even though you have to be in the camera menu to actually look at what's happening, it is actually useful when you're not looking at it, because it has a motion sensor, so if anybody ever passes in front of it, it will actually beep and alert you that somebody is coming. But you are also able to mark players through the camera, and if your team deploys multiple cameras, one person could be like the camera operator and go ahead and cycle through the different ones so they can get a better view of everything. The next major talking point is going to be the dynamic vehicle gameplay. Now, the biggest thing that I'm excited about is that they're going to be adding the ability to pop tires on vehicles. Now, that to me is very, very exciting, because I cannot tell you how many times in Warzone you're getting chased around by a Bertha, or even in MW Ground War or whatever, getting chased around. You can now pop tires. Now, with you being able to deal damage like that to the vehicles, people can get out and actually repair them. How they repair them, I have no idea, but when they repair them, they did mention the tires will fix themselves essentially. So with that, they also added the ability for things to fall off the vehicle. So if somebody hits your door with an RPG, the door of the car is coming off. So these things are all independent of each other, and they can act as such. They added the ability that if you're in a vehicle, you can actually hang out of the window and begin opening fire on enemies. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal. It seems like, oh, you know, nobody's going to do that. Trust me, anybody who played PUBG, watches PUBG, or knows anything about PUBG, hanging out of the window and blasting people is crazy overpowered. And especially with the ability that they're giving you in Call of Duty to switch back to the driver's seat so easily, and the driving just being, you know, as easy as it is, I think that's going to be a crazy feature, especially if it ends up making its way to Warzone, which they seemed like they're going to be bringing it to Warzone. Another cool thing with the hanging out of the window, and I don't know if they let this slip, if this was even meant to be mentioned, but there will be a train, an active train on some map somewhere. I don't know where, I don't know when, because when they were talking about the vehicles, they actually said when you're hanging out of the side, you'll be given an option to go ahead and actually climb on the roof of the car. And then they said from there, you know, if you're on the roof of the car, you can go ahead and jump off onto the train. And I was like, you're adding a train. Very interesting. So I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but not only are you going to be able to hang out the window, you're going to be able to get on top of the car, and they leaked that there's going to be a train somewhere. If that's in Warzone, on the Warzone map, I don't know. If that's just in the Modern Warfare side, I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, the last major change that they made to vehicles is these things called HUSKs. I guess that's like a developer term. Basically, if I blow up a vehicle in Modern Warfare, it goes boom, the tires blow off, and then there's nothing. It's like kapow, it's just gone, you know, vanishes. In Modern Warfare 2 and in Warzone, if I blow up somebody's vehicle, the vehicle will just be there, and it's not going anywhere. So if I'm out in the middle of a field, somebody destroys my car, the car explodes, but then the car is still there for me to use as cover. This not only works when the vehicle is destroyed outside of water, but if you go ahead and drive the vehicle into water, it will essentially, they made it very, very realistic. It's going to like go ahead and just float on top, and then eventually it'll make its way down and sink, which is something I think is very, very cool. The vehicles that they are adding some new vehicles. There is a boat, which anybody that played Blackout, it looks and reacts, from what I saw, exactly like the boat in Blackout. Shout out to Vandahar. Make Blackout 2. Thank you. Love you. Anyway, they are also adding a helicopter troop carrier. So basically, it's an oversized helicopter with ample room to run around, I guess, and it has a hover ability. Sounds crazy. All right, so multiplayer overall is going to be broken down into two main modes, or two different styles of multiplayer. You're going to have your battle maps and your core maps. Now, battle maps, you might be thinking to yourself, what is that? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It is your ground war maps, your large oversized maps. And they did go ahead and say that these POIs, these large battle maps, are going to be what makes up the Warzone 2 map. They did say that there is a brand new Warzone map coming. So obviously these are the POIs that are going to be making it up, and they are building them and testing them relentlessly to make sure the gunplay, the fights, everything like that flows well inside of that POI, which is a great thing to hear. So hopefully nothing too overpowered in that sense. The maps are Said and Serif Bay. So Said is an intense urban combat map. Basically, it's meant to be kind of the bridge or the marriage between the core maps and the sandbox maps. And then there is Serif Bay, which is basically is a tourist fishing village style map, is the way they explained it. So I'm assuming there'll be a lot of water, a lot of cool water fights and everything like that. The other side of the multiplayer, aside from the battle maps, like I said, is going to be the core maps. This is going to be your 6v6, basically smaller, tighter, and cleaner reads. There are three maps that they mentioned: Museum, Grand Prix, and Farm 18. From what I got to see and what I heard, they all sound phenomenal and they should play great. Now that all that's out of the way, we can talk about the two brand new modes that they're going to go ahead and be bringing to Modern Warfare 2, which I am personally so excited to play. Knockout is what I'm looking for, and also Prisoner Rescue. Those are the two new modes. I'll go over briefly what each of them are. So Knockout is going to be the last one with the package wins. It is a 6v6 game mode, and you have one life. Instead of just dying when you get shot, you actually get knocked, and then you can have the chance to be able to be revived. The win condition is simple. You either eliminate the entire enemy team, or you are the one holding the package when the timer runs out. But when you go ahead and actually grab the package, you get an icon over your head that the entire server can see. So it's almost like a king's crown from Warzone. I think the replayability is going to be there, and I am really excited for it, and that tactical style of play. And the other mode is Prisoner Rescue. This is going to kind of be a breaching and sieging style of gameplay, so more of a very tactical extraction style. Obviously, there's going to be people that are the attackers and people that are the defenders. The defenders will spawn closer to the prisoner, and then the attackers obviously further away. And the way that you're going to be able to go ahead and get a win in this is you can either go ahead and carry the prisoner out to the extraction point or eliminate the whole other team. This mode is so exciting and so much fun, or sounds so much fun, because it will also be added to the battle maps with a lot of different entrances, alleyways, rooms to check, everything like that. It's going to be very tactical, and I cannot wait to play it. Anyway, that's all I have about the new Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 inside of Warzone. I hope I answered all of your questions. I know the video title said 50 things you need to know, and I know it was way more than 50, so thank you guys for sticking around. I hope I was thorough enough, answered all the questions you guys may have had. If you guys have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. I'll be going through later today and answering everything that I possibly can. Go ahead and drop a like on this video if you guys are excited for Modern Warfare 2. Make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss any of the Modern Warfare 2 or Warzone 2 content that I have coming out. And even if you guys don't have a question, feel free to leave a comment down below about whether you're excited, the things that you heard that you liked, and the things that you heard that you didn't like, because hopefully Call of Duty is watching this and they'll take your feedback. So go ahead and just leave it all in the comment section down below. And without further ado, guys, have a fantastic rest of your day.